What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, joined by my guy Morgan Cannon, and this is your go-to place for all things Lions related. We're talking news, updates, analysis, and so much more. Today, Morgan, we are here on another Victory Monday. The Lions continue to keep their win streak alive, get to 10 wins on the season. Them and the Kansas City Chiefs both are the only teams in the NFL currently to have double-digit wins. It did look different, though, right? Like the Lions getting to 10 wins and the Chiefs getting to 10 wins looks very different right now. And I think as the Lions continue to win, even when other teams are winning, like we're going to talk about the Eagles a little bit later here in this video, but as other teams are winning and other teams are on win streaks, you're still starting to see that separation between what the Lions are doing and what every other team that is like in the plus column when it comes to wins. But I did my video yesterday, gave you some quick reactions to the game. I wanted to like kind of give you the stage just to kind of just wrap about anything that you kind of took away from yesterday's win against the Indianapolis Colts.
Just another impressive win, man, but for different reasons, right? Like just kind of like a ho-hum performance on the road, but then they won by 18 and like it was never really like after a certain point it was never really in doubt, like minus the first drive and like a blip here and there. Indianapolis's offense wasn't able to do anything. Anthony Richardson looked extremely uncomfortable for like most of the game, probably, definitely contributed to some of his inaccuracy, some of those issues. And yeah, just overall, just another just stacking dubs, man. Like at the end, I've said it for weeks now. I'm gonna keep on saying it over these next 6 weeks. The most important thing is securing that 1 seed at this point. So that way we know the Lions wouldn't have to, go on the road until you know what game. So yeah, just happy about it. And it was cool to see just another way for them to win, right? Like the offense, it was okay. Like they got things going here and there, but it was just enough. And then the defense was just suffocating again, man, just like squeezing the life out of people, which is awesome to watch.
And I think that's the thing. Like those are two of the things that I touched on yesterday when talking about the game was like, one, the offense didn't look nearly as good as we're used to seeing, especially when you talk about like the week prior, right? Like a blowout against Jacksonville looks crazy, right? Everyone that seemed to touch the football got to score. You get to this week and it was a little tougher, right? And I think it was more self-inflicted than necessarily what the Colts were doing. Again, not to take away from the Colts defense, they were able to get 3 sacks on Jared Goff and really make him have to like not take his first read and have to really work through his progressions and eventually like just either have to dirt a ball or take a sack. But I'm with you. Like I don't think there was anything that they were doing that was like, oh, this is going to be a problem for the Lions for the long term. But you look at the defense and on a week where you're missing your second corner, you're missing, you're starting one of your starting linebackers because, Alex Anzalone is on IR now, and you end up losing Carlton Davis later in that game with a knee injury. Like there was a number of moments where it was like, okay, this could get dicey. And Kendall Vildor is not looking good in this matchup. Like he's getting picked on, and rightfully so in a number of different situations. So there was a couple moments there where it's like, oh, could this get out of hand? And the defense just found ways of making Anthony Richardson's life difficult. And I also, again, to throw him a bone, I also think this is like, that was a byproduct of a guy who just hasn't gotten enough reps in the league. Right? Like a lot of his throws were rushed and you could see him get frustrated with some of his receivers because they weren't on the same page, or he's trying to get the ball out quicker and they're not getting out of their breaks quicker, whatever the case may be. But I think at the same time, like you got to give the Lions defense a lot of credit for making life difficult for him in yesterday's game.
Yeah, and for Richardson, so much of his issues is tied to his feet, man. Like his feet are just all over the place. Like that deep shot he missed. Well, that's not actually his fault. DJ Reader whipped somebody,
rocked him. Yeah.
And yeah, like a couple, like he had 2 quarterback hits, but yeah, DJ, like they were affecting some, but yeah, a lot of Richardson's issues are like need to be corrected in the off season, like working with like a trainer, like a specific quarterback skills trainer, just like kind of rewrite some of the software for his feet almost, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at there, but it was just another masterful performance from AG. Like, yeah, you got dinged up. Dan Campbell spoke today to the media. He talked about like Carlton, Decker, and then Khalif obviously would be the ones that he's like worried about, like just maybe missing this week with the short turnaround for Thanksgiving. So yeah, but at the end of the day, Aaron Glenn's worked with less. So like, and this team's deep. Like it's very timely to be getting Mosley back in the fold.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Vildor, man. Like he's like almost like Nevin Lawson to me, man. He's in decent position. Like the deep shot they took, that was just he was in pretty good relationship to the receiver, but Richardson dropped it in the bucket. And you're like, everyone's like, oh, Vildor. I'm like, if that ball had not got off his face last January, we'd be okay. But man, yeah, people do like Kendall Vildor.
And I think that's a good lead into what you're saying as far as like AG being able to make the adjustments. Because one of the things I did want to talk about, because again, we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about yesterday's game because, like I said, Morgan kind of just gave his thoughts on the game. And then you guys, if you are interested in some of my other thoughts from yesterday's game, you can definitely check out the video we posted yesterday with my instant reaction. But one of the lingering effects from yesterday's game that we are going to talk about are the injuries. And to your point, AG's done a great job of just shuffling everything, right? Like, you lose Derek Barnes early in the season. You find a way of shuffling things around where Malcolm Rodriguez is playing a lot more. So the impact of losing Derek Barnes isn't as much. You lose Aiden Hutchinson. A couple weeks go by and the defense does like look a little odd without Aiden for those first couple weeks, but eventually you get Zadarius Smith, and Zadarius has looked great the last couple weeks. You also, that interior of your defensive line has looked really good and been able to step up with the absence of Aiden Hutchinson. Aleem has been playing out of his mind the last few weeks. You lose Alex Anzalone last week. Jack Campbell's able to step up, and Jack looked great yesterday. Like, I know Malcolm got a game ball, but I thought Jack looked great playing sideline to sideline in coverage and in run defense and everything. But again, you start to wonder, you didn't have Terrion Arnold because of a groin injury, and you lost Carlton. And like you said, Dan Campbell made the comment today that like, hey, Carlton might be one of those guys who's not able to play this upcoming Thursday. While the Bears are not a good football team, right? They're not in the plus column. They have definitely had their struggles. We can't deny that they have like talent at that skill position. So how much longer do you think Aaron Glenn can continue to do this juggling act with this defense? Because obviously, like you said, it is very much a next man up mentality here in Detroit. But how much longer can that like really sustain you when you have talented offenses coming up down the stretch of this season?
Yeah, I think it'll matter more. Like, I'm not even trying to throw shade to the Bears this week. Like, it's just the Bears offense has been pretty bad by all accounts this year. Some of it's play calling related, some of it's Caleb Williams, getting acclimated to the NFL related. So it's a bunch of stuff in that pot right there. But yeah, like once the offenses get better, towards the end of the season in the playoffs, like where you're going to be facing probably, some of the best, I do think it'll make, it'll matter more at that point. And like, hopefully you have your full disposal. You got Carlton back, Terrion's healthy, Ennis, Rick Straw's healthy, everyone, because you're going to need them. But like, even like David Montgomery tried entering the game. I know it's not on offense, but tried, was like, hey, I'm good to go back in the game. And Dan Campbell's like, hey, we got bigger fish to fry, more or less to Montgomery, which you get that because they got another game, they got 2 more games and a span of 10 days. So,
well, I was gonna say that's one of the saving graces, right? Like, while you do have this quick turnaround for Chicago, you'll have a 10-day break before you have to play the following week. So it's like you do kind of get a little, like it's like getting an extra bye, kind of.
After the Packers game, you mean? Yeah, you get December 5th to the 15th. You got, because you have another Thursday game after this one against the Packers.
Oh yeah,
and then, then you have a 10-day break though, is what you're. 100%. That's going to be nice. That'll be big for them too, because it's like a little mini bye, like not like a full bye, but
yeah,
get a little break.
No, and that's a good call because I forgot the Packers game was on a Thursday, so
I have to a couple times.
So yeah, screw the NFL schedule makers for doing that, because that's dumb.
2 home games
and to make it a division.
I know.
I mean, like, the saving grace is that they're home games, but like the fact that you gave them back-to-back Thursday night games against divisional rivals is just dumb. Though the Packers also play on Thursday, so
so it's okay. It's fair.
Okay, so it's fair. Never mind.
As us, because they play the night game for the Thanksgiving, I want to say. So
so they're almost kind of like a little worse off because you don't get like the extra hours.
Yeah, at least our guys can go home and eat during the day and everything after the game.
Yeah, you can get to treatment a little bit quicker.
Yep.
But no, I'm there with you. I think the other thing I tried to call out yesterday is like and you mentioned it as well. The timeliness of getting Emmanuel Mosley back is very good. I think we're not sure like again, what was the reason for Terrion not playing, like how close he was to playing on Sunday. But I mean, if you can at least get Terrion back, and then I do think you would have to swap. I would swap out Mosley for Vildor. I don't think you can allow him to line up against either Keenan Allen or DJ Moore. Like that's asking for trouble. And I think after seeing what happened against Indianapolis, but if you can have Terrion, if you can have Emmanuel Mosley, and then obviously Amik has been playing really well, I think that's a good enough tandem at the corner position to go, and have Chicago come in here on Thursday and do enough, especially considering what the defensive line has been doing and how they've been playing. And if you can continue to rattle Caleb Williams and not give him time in the pocket, well, then, yeah, I think Aaron Glenn can once again pull another rabbit out of his hat and have another really good performance from that defense.
Yeah, it's a doable. It's not an insurmountable task. Like I think the Bears are tougher than some, like their record kind of gives credit for, but they've lost some heartbreakers. We know about the Hail Mary. They got the kick blocked against the Packers the other day or 2 weeks ago. They've lost some stupid ways. So I don't think this is going to be a cakewalk, but at the same time, I think the Lions know that they need to keep their foot down on the pedal just to bring this thing home, man. Like I've said, I want to be having a barbecue on Wild Card Weekend. Just chilling.
Shoot, I want to have a barbecue week 18. I want to be able to go into week 18, even though it's against the Vikings. Which again, obviously the Lions would need some help in that regard. But I would love for week 18 to not matter at all.
Agreed. Them fools need to lose some games.
But with that said, speaking of contenders, and speaking of the Vikings, as the season has been going on, and we kind of talked about this at the top of the video, with the Lions getting their 10th win, the Eagles picked up their 9th win, the Vikings picked up their 8th win. I want to say.
No, they're 9.
No,
they've won 9 too.
Yeah. So they picked up their 9th win as well. Overtime win over the Chicago Bears. The NFC North, or sorry, not just the NFC North. The NFC looks very different than I think a lot of people would have thought when the season first kicked off. Like I think a lot of people would have expected San Francisco to be up here near the top. I think people would have probably even expected Seattle to be a little bit better. But then when you look at the landscape right now, you have the Lions, you have the Eagles, you have the Vikings, and I would throw the Packers in there as well as true threats to the Lions in terms of getting that number 1 seed. But when you look at that group, Morgan, who stands out as the biggest threat to the Lions in terms of getting that number 1 seed and getting all of those home playoff games in once they get to the playoffs?
I'm going to go with the Eagles. It might sound like the chalky answer, but they figured some things out here recently. Like earlier in the season, there was whispers of Sirianni needing to go and this, that.
Bro, those weren't even whispers. People were yelling that at the.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So and now they've, Vic Fangio is their defensive coordinator. I'm sure a lot of y'all watching are familiar with him. That defense appears to have got some things together. And then Saquon, that's their superpower, right? So at this point, the way I look at the Lions and the rest of this season, I look at teams yes, any given Sunday they can lose games. We saw the Texans lost to the who this weekend? They lost to a bad team.
It's the Titans.
Yeah, boom, right, you just never know. But with that said, I look at other teams, I'm like, okay, what can they do elite? Because you're gonna need at least 1 or 2 of those to beat the Lions at this point with the way they're currently functioning. Buffalo, that's going to be a tough game because they have Josh Allen and he's just one of the best players in the game. You can kind of find it.
Yeah.
But the Eagles, with that offensive line, still really good. They've got things clicking on offense now with getting him the ball. He had 255 yards last night against the Rams on Sunday Night Football in the Week 12 Sunday night matchup. And yeah, that's kind of who I would go with. I would go with the Eagles just because they look like they're playing the most complete brand of football besides the Lions right now. The Vikings, man, I think they're about to turn into a pumpkin. They've won a couple of really close games. Sam Darnold's regressed to the mean. Now he's hurt. The Packers are inconsistent. They're really banged up too. That's still tough. I don't want to play the Packers in the playoffs ideally because that'd be the 3rd time you play them and no one wants that.
Yeah, you just never know how that's going to shake out.
So yeah, but I would go with the Eagles. What about you?
No, I think the Eagles are, the safe bet. And I think watching what they did last night against the Rams and just, again, you hear about other teams being on win streaks, right? Again, there's a lot of football that's being played. I don't have a NFL ticket, so I'm not watching every single game. But again, every once in a while, when you get to see these teams in action, seeing the Eagles in action, it's like, yeah, that's a problem, right? Like you have the threat of Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley in the backfield. You have AJ Brown that's out there. They didn't even have Devontae Smith yesterday, and again, still being able to throw the ball, and AJ Brown still being able to be that mismatch on the outside. But then the defense was the other thing that really stood out to me, and just how they were able to get after Matthew Stafford and that Rams offensive line. Granted, I have much more faith in the Lions offensive line than I would the Rams, but it's still like you see the bodies that they have to throw at you when it comes down to who is available on that defensive line. I do know they lost Brandon Graham
BT.
yesterday, yeah, with a torn tricep, so I know he's out for the season. But I mean, you still have Jalen Carter, you still have a number of other guys along that defensive front, and then that secondary is at least like opportunistic, right? It's maybe not as talented as like as the name suggests it is, but it's still a group that you have to be mindful of. So the Eagles are another team that I think is worth keeping an eye on. They also have a tough schedule down the stretch, though, Morgan. I mean, they have to play the Ravens this upcoming week, then they get the Panthers, and then they have the Steelers as well. So they have a couple of games as well that like could knock them off and put them further behind the eight ball and provide some more separation between them and the Lions in terms of, chasing that number one seed. But I'm also in agreement with you when it comes down to the Vikings. I think the Vikings have gotten fairly lucky the last few weeks, right? They've had things bounce the right way. Playing the Bears that close is weird, right? And Justin Jefferson not having a breakout game when like he's considered by all means to be the best wide receiver in football. There's a number of things with the Vikings where it's like you feel like with their schedule, them having to play Atlanta, them still having to play Seattle, they have to play Green Bay and Chicago again, and they still have to play us. Like there's a number of things that could bounce away from them and basically put them further behind the eight ball as well.
Yeah, there's every game for sure, and then the Eagles have played some close. They've been blowing some teams out, like they blew the Rams out. But yeah, I think these next 6 weeks are going to be really interesting for in that regard. But yeah, I'm excited, man. It's going to be a good finish. But yeah, I'd be sleeping. We shouldn't be complaining, but at the same time, I'd be chilling a little bit more if there was like a game or two in between the Lions and the rest of the NFC. Just a little breathing room.
Yeah, just because again, like it's a race to the finish, right? Everyone wants to continue the streak that they're on. The Eagles are on a 7-game win streak. I think the Vikings are on what, like a 4-game win streak right now. So like a lot of these teams are trending in the right direction. And it just becomes a matter of like, okay, who's going to mess up first? And the last thing you want is to get into that weird math of like, okay, well, you beat this team, but you lost to this team, and this determines the seeding. Like it's so
Yeah,
much
exactly.
easier just to have things continue to trend the way that they are. And obviously, that requires the Lions, first and foremost, to take care of their business. They have to continue to win. They have to continue to stay ahead of the pack because that's where they are currently. With that said, we've been hella optimistic the last couple weeks, right? The Lions have been blowing people out. The win streak is trending the right way. Everybody's on cloud nine. And I hate being the person that like tries to bring us back down there because I think we all should be sailing high at this moment. We deserve it as Lions fans. But I do want to ask the question, Morgan, because the more the Lions win, the more the Super Bowl becomes a reality, right? And not just making it to the Super Bowl, but winning the Super Bowl becomes like the aspiration more than just getting there and being like, hey, we at least got there. If the Lions were to get to the Super Bowl, who I don't care what the record ends up being. They could win out, they could lose a couple, whatever the case may be. But let's just say on that track they get to the Super Bowl. Would you consider this season to be a failure if they don't win the Super Bowl?
If you ask me that night, I'll probably say yeah because I'll be emotional and in my feels. But then wake up, drink some coffee, take a shower, that kind of deal. Like I think I'd be back to where I am right now because Brad Holmes and them have told us, man, Dan Campbell, like they plan to be here every year. Like they built this thing. They want to be a perennial because that's ultimately how you get to win Super Bowl or Super Bowls, like
Mm-hmm.
plural, is like being able to put your name in the hat every single year, if not, most years, if not every single year, right? Like being a bit like the Ravens, like in the AFC, we talk about that a lot. So I would say no, just because if they win 14 or 15 games and they make it to the Super Bowl and somehow lose, I hope it's not to the Chiefs, but or even lose before then, like yeah, it's gonna sting, it's gonna hurt really bad. But at the end of the day, they have made it known they want this thing to be a year in and year out, like put it on your calendar, Detroit. You guys are going to be playing meaningful football in January. And that's like ultimately what I want, because in my opinion, that'll lead to championships, you know?
Yeah. And that makes sense. I am going to give like probably the worst like political answer that I could possibly give. And it depends how it looks. Like, in all honesty, that like for me as a fan, if I'm being honest, I am one of those fans with like how you lose matters to me. Matters to me more than if you lost. Because to your point, if the Lions win 15 games, get to the Super Bowl, and come up short, right? Whether it's just like a last minute field goal or a last minute interception or something crazy like that, and it's like that's how you lose, like, okay, like that's gonna suck to your point. But I wouldn't look back on the season and be like, well, this was all for nothing. If you go this far, because we're going into week 13, right? And we've been talking about for the last at least 3 or 4 weeks, maybe longer, that this has been the best team in football. Like, they've looked like the best team in football. And if you have looked like the best team in football up until the point that you get to the Super Bowl, and then you look like you don't belong there,
Yeah.
that's when I would be disappointed. That's when I would feel like, okay, we wasted something, right? Because what the Lions are doing, we've talked about, like, we've talked about the offense a lot. What they're doing offensively with Jameer, Monty, Amon-Ra, Jamo's having a great year. Like, me and B-Nap are joking about, like, hey, he only needs like just under 400 yards to get to 1,000. Like, let's hope he gets it against the Bears. Like,
No, that'd be
everybody
fun.
on this offense is having like great breakout seasons. But what you're doing on defense, like, that's hard to replicate when you're down so many bodies and yet you're still finding ways. They've shut out teams from the end zone for what, 2 straight games, 10
10
quarters or
quarters.
something like that. Like, that's so rare to do when you're missing the pieces that they're missing. I would hate for the Lions to get to the Super Bowl and then just get ran through by somebody and be like, because you just don't know if you're going to capture that same magic the following year. Like you said, I would probably be the same as you. Like, give me a day or so and I would come back to earth and be like, hey, it was still a great ride. We have the pieces to get back there, but the day of, dude, I'd be destroyed.
Yeah, I don't want to forget about it. I'd be in my room crying, probably
Bro.
drinking some pops, just sad. But yeah, I'm right there with you, and I do think context will matter. Like, but that's where I trust this coaching staff, bro. They'll be ready to play. They might not win it just because it's football. It's a fickle game, but 2 weeks to prep, like, my God, too. I've thought about countless times, bro. Like, if the Lions do win the NFC Championship game, imagine how long those 2 weeks are going to be, man.
Bro, at this point in time, giving the Lions 2 weeks for any opponent is like giving Batman prep time.
It's
Like,
true.
you just know things are going to go more than likely in their way, because like
Yeah.
that coaching staff, to your point, is going to have everyone ready for everything. And so it's exciting to be in this situation, and you only get to have these types of conversations. While it may sound like a negative conversation, you only get to have these conversations if you're in this type of position, if you're in a position to, like, not just like win a bunch of games, but actually make it to the Super Bowl. And so for a fan base that hasn't even got to experience a Super Bowl in any of our lifetimes, like, that's going to be an amazing feeling in itself. And I'm not saying that like that shouldn't be enough. I think for some fans that will be enough. Like, just getting there will be enough for some people. But I know that there's also going to be that portion of the fan base that's going to be like, yeah, that's not enough. Like, I want to get there and win it. And anything less than that is a waste. And so thought it was an interesting like topic to kind of just kick around a little bit.
I mean, no doubt, man. Like, I think about that one quote Dan Campbell had earlier in the year when they're like, "Is it Super Bowl or bust?" He's like, "Well, I don't see bust. I just see Super Bowl." And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
man." So I like that. I like that mindset, and that's why I'm glad we still got a nice chunk of regular season to go, because I'm still in just 1 week at a time mode, right? You know, like, it's Monday. We're recording this Monday night. The Lions are back at Ford Field here in a couple days, and on we go, right? Need to get that 11th win. 11-1 sounds pretty good to me.
It sounds great to me. So with that said, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for today's video. We will be back probably tomorrow recording film study of the Bears. We're going to look at Caleb Williams. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I want to look at the tape on Caleb Williams. I've watched a couple games, but I want to like dive into the tape because I want to know what's going on with this dude at quarterback. Obviously the Bears defense has given the Lions fits as well. So we'll probably take a couple of looks at the defense as well tomorrow, but That's the next time that you guys will see us on the YouTube channel. If you are looking to keep up with any more Detroit Lions content, though, you already know that you can head over to pridedetroit.com. Also, make sure that you are subscribed and have your notifications on the YouTube channel, so that way you're notified when we upload our next film study, and that way you can be notified whenever the other POD staff decides to go live for a live stream or anything like that. We are still doing our November donations and charity giveaway, so definitely make sure that you guys are supporting it while those are going on. And I forgot to mention this. We should have mentioned this at the top of the video. So if you've made it this far, if you're not on Twitter and if you haven't seen the announcement, Pride of Detroit is doing a live recording. I believe it's December
4th.
Thank you. Yeah. So December 4th, we will be doing a live show. So definitely go check out the website for more details on that, or you can also check us out over on Twitter. I think there's the announcement was posted there as well, as far as what you need to do in order to be in attendance for that live recording. But it's going to be exciting. A lot of us at the POD staff is going to be there. Morgan and I will be there. You'll be there, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's at the Majestic Theater right there in Midtown. So hope to see. It's a cool venue too. Like they got pizza, beer, that kind of thing. So Sergeant Pepperoni's is right there. It's cool. It'll be fun.
And it is a family event. So again, you don't just, there will be alcohol available for those that want to partake, but you can bring your kids because again,
there's kids.
POD loves the kids.
We do. Love the kids.
So with all that said, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll be sure to catch you guys in the next one.